Hey everybody and welcome back. Today is February 5th, 2019. In this video, we're going to talk a lot about Super Bowl 53, a scripted numeric ritual, and in this video, I will prove unequivocally, undoubtedly, undeniably that the NFL is a rigged stage show put on by people who are obsessed with numerology. Now, before we get too far, if you happen to be new to my videos, please understand that the Gematria ciphers I'll be sharing with you are incredibly simple, particularly the alphabetic order called English ordinal in the top left. This practice of Gematria, as it's often pronounced, dates back to the ancient Hebrew and Greek languages. Here in English, we were taught a separate numeric and numbering systems. However, if you combine the two, you find that there's some pretty interesting alignments that we'll discuss. So again, English ordinal numbers each letter 1 through 26 relative to its position in the alphabet. We also have the reduction method, also called Pythagorean or Agrippan gematria. This uses the rules of numerology to reduce every double-digit number to a single digit. And both of these methods can then be reversed for complementary methods called reverse ordinal and reverse full reduction. So let's show you a little bit about how this works. First of all, let's talk about the number 53, as this was the 53rd Super Bowl played over the weekend. The number 53 has always been significant to the sport of football. Now, if you look at the ball used in the game, you'll see that it actually fits in perfectly with a vesica piscis. A vesica piscis, a very significant shape in geometry. This study of gematria is geometry within the language. And notice how whether you count the letters forwards to backwards, or if you use the reverse order where Z is 1 and A is 26, the word geometry sums to 108 in both of those methods. It was Euclid who was said to be the father of geometry. Euclid equals 108 in the reverse order as well. When you write out the phrase vesica piscis, notice how it has a reduction value of 53. Again, the football in the shape of the vesica piscis. As this picture here illustrates, a vesica piscis is also formed at the beginning of a solar eclipse when the moon begins to overlap the sun. And it's no coincidence that solar eclipse also sums to 53. In fact, these two phrases share numbers in 3 of the 4 base ciphers. Everyone knows that a football field is 100 yards long from end zone to end zone, but not everybody understands that it's 53 yards wide. Also, each team in the NFL has a 53-man game day roster that they're forced to cut down to before the season begins. And these numbers are not arbitrary. In Super Bowl 53, the New England Patriots won their 37th playoff game of all time. And this is researchable on your by yourself. You can look up the New England playoff record, 37-20. Super Bowl 53 was their 37th win. In gematria, Patriots sums to 37 and 53 when you use the reduction method. The Patriots beat Los Angeles, which has the same numbers in the same ciphers, for their 37th playoff win in Super Bowl 53. Again, this league scripted by the language that I'm sharing with you. And just think about how there was only one touchdown scored in this game. Not only was it the lowest scoring game in NFL history, but it was also the only one that featured only one touchdown. And notice how this touchdown was scored with 7 minutes left in the game. We'll subtract 7 from 60, the length of the game, and you'll realize that this touchdown was scored exactly 53 minutes into the game. The touchdown was scored by Sony Michel, and check out how many yards he had when he scored the touchdown. 53 yards. What about the Rams? The Rams only scored 3 points during the entire game, and would you believe it? Those 3 points came on a 53-yard field goal. What about number 53 of the New England Patriots? His name is Kyle Van Noy. See how using the alphabetic order the name Kyle equals 53? This guy made a huge sack in the second quarter. The Rams had a 3rd and 2 in New England territory. Van Noy came in and made a 13-yard sack. Well, if you look at where the ball was lined up, it's the New England 47, but the Rams were actually 53 yards from their own end zone. When the ball was snapped, 25 minutes and 3 seconds had passed in the game. And this is no coincidence. Think about how the New England Patriots finished the game with 253 team passing yards. Also in the alphabetic order, when you write out Super Bowl 53, it sums to 253. Again, this play where 53 got the sack on number 16 taking place 25 minutes and 3 seconds into the game. And we'll talk about number 16, Jared Goff, why he wears that number in a second. But first I want to look again at Sony Michel's touchdown. When the clock stopped, it was at 7 minutes. But when the ball was snapped, it was with 7:03 on the clock, 7 minutes and 3 seconds. In numerology, zeros are ignored, just as we ignored the 0 up here. So this number represents a 73. And isn't it interesting, the guy who scored the touchdown, his name is Sony, which sums to 73. Sony Michel has birth numerology of 133. This here is his birthday, February 17th, 1995. If you add 2 plus 17 plus 19 plus 95, you get 133. And think about how the Patriots won the game by a score of 13-3. Here's a quick look at the 2 other ciphers that we'll be glancing at, English Extended and Jewish, which is based on the Latin alphabetic order. Both of these ciphers more closely mirror the ancient Hebrew Gematria and Greek isopsephy charts and produce much, much larger numbers, thus providing less chance for coincidence, as a lot of people continue to say this study is. We'll check out the name Sony Michel, see how it sums to 147 in the reverse order. In Jewish Gematria, Super Bowl equals 1407, but also notice how Super Bowl equals 112. The name Michel equals 112. The Patriots locked up the Super Bowl with 1 minute and 12 seconds left on the clock. Speaking of the number 112 and Super Bowl, on the date of this game, Jared Goff was exactly 112 days after his birthday. So speaking of Jared Goff, let's talk about him and the number he wears. We opened up the video talking about the significance of 53 and why Super Bowl 53 was such a significant numeric ritual. Well, it just so happens that 53 is a prime number. In fact, 53 is the 16th prime number. In Gematria, Los Angeles Rams sums to 160 using the alphabetic order. And think about how Jared Goff, the quarterback of the Rams, wears number 16. 16, another significant number to football. It's the number of teams in each the NFC and the AFC. This game finished 13-3. That's a total of 16 points. If you were watching the game and noticed the halftime stats, you might have seen that Tom Brady had 160 yards passing in the first half. Meanwhile, Jared Goff only had 52 yards passing in the first half. And how interesting is it that Los Angeles Rams also equals 52? Brady with 160 yards, Jared Goff with 52. It was perfect. Jared Goff was sacked twice by only one player. That was Dante Hightower. And notice how Dante Hightower's full name in reduction sums to 106, just like the number 16. Remember, 53 is the 16th prime number. Notice how his name also sums to 241 in the alphabetic order. 241 is the 53rd prime number. So what a perfect player to rack up 2 sacks in the Super Bowl 53, which his full name has multiple connections to. And if you think what I'm sharing is amazing, guys, wait till I get to the second half of this video and we talk about how this game is numerically related to the 1953 NFL Championship game. It's pretty mind-blowing. When you write out Super Bowl 53 and add the number 53 to the equation, you get 184. And this is interesting because Tom Brady, 184 days after his birthday. Notice how in the alphabetic order, Super Bowl 53 with Roman numerals equals 170. This represents the number 17. The game was played on a date with 17 numerology. Tom Brady, born on a date with 107 numerology. Remember how the only touchdown was scored by Sony Michel? Sony equals 17. Well, the 17th prime number is 59. And this just happens to be New England's 59th season in the NFL. And when you write out 53, like the number Super Bowl we were in, 53 equals 59. I think the rest of this stuff, it's fairly interesting, but I definitely want to talk about this 1953 NFL Championship game and how it's overwhelmingly numerically related to Super Bowl 53. If you're not familiar with my work, and even if you are, this might just blow your freaking mind. So right off the bat, I noticed a couple of interesting things. Super Bowl 53 was won by the Patriots, which sums to 37 reduction, 98 reverse. The 1953 NFL Championship game was won by Detroit, which also sums to 37 in reduction and 98 in reverse. Detroit summing to 91, just like Browns, the team they defeated in the 1953 NFL Championship. Remember, 53 is the 16th prime number. We saw how Los Angeles Rams sums to 160. They made Super Bowl 53. Well, what about the fact that Detroit Lions equals 160? And they won the 1953 NFL Championship. If you think NFL rigging is a recent thing, you're sadly mistaken. This is how it's been set up since the very beginning, by masonry, by a skull and bonesman named Walter Camp. Do the research. You'll figure it out. Also, when you add the two teams' names, Lions, Browns, it also sums to 160. Perfect for the 53 title game. The quarterback of the 1953 Detroit Lions, the team that won the game, was Bobby Lane. Bobby Lane was born on December 19th, 1926. The 1953 title game was played on December 27th of 1953, meaning he was exactly 9,870 days old. This represents the number 987. And can you believe this? 987 is the 16th Fibonacci number. So not only do we have that alignment from the quarterback, but let's also look at the coach of the Lions. The coach of the Lions that year was Buddy Parker. Buddy Parker was born on December 6th. Oh, I'm sorry, we're looking at the losing coach here. Paul Brown. We'll look at Parker in a second. Paul Brown was born on August 5th, which means that this game, or no, he died August 5th. Sorry, truth seekers. Just got to figure out exactly what I measured. So we're talking about the number 16 in relation to the 53 title game. Notice how the Cleveland Browns in the 53 title game, they scored 16 points. Again, 53 the 16th prime. Coach Paul Brown was exactly a span of 16 weeks after his birthday. His name, Paul Brown, sums to 122 ordinal, 49 in reverse reduction. The number 53 equals 122 ordinal and 49 reverse reduction. So now we're going to look at the coach of the Lions, the winning coach, Buddy Parker. Notice how the name Buddy Parker equals 53 in reduction. Also notice how the name Parker equals 69, just like the name of the team he coached, Lions. Parker, the coach of the Lions, both of them summing to 69. This is where it gets really, really trippy. Quarterback Bobby Lane, born 12/19/1926. On the date of the game, he was exactly 1,410 weeks old. So here we're looking at essentially the number 141. The winning coach of Super Bowl 53 is Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick was born on April 16th, 1952. 4/16/1952. Dang, I should have done a rehearsal. I'm supposed to be looking at the coach. All right, guys. So here, let me recap since I kind of lost it here. Bobby Lane, the quarterback of the Lions, was 1,410 weeks old on the date of the game. Bill Belichick was born exactly 14,001 days after the coach of the Lions, Buddy Parker. So the coach is separated by 14,001 days. When you look at the game statistics, you'll notice 141 stick out. Wide receiver Julian Edelman had 141 yards to lead all receivers in the game. Well, this is pretty interesting because Julian Edelman was born on May 22nd, 1986, which is 3,100 weeks and 4 days after Bobby Lane. So I'm getting this Bobby Lane and Buddy Parker really mixed up in my head here. So here we have a pi combination. 314, 3.14, the first three digits of pi. So the fact that Julian Edelman had 141 yards receiving attribute to the age of the quarterback and the number of days that separate the two coaches. So 3.14, the first three digits of pi. The smallest equation you can use to get a pi on a calculator is 22 divided by 7. And using the alphabetic order, 22 divided by 7 sums to 314. Alt 227 on a Windows keyboard will give you this fancy little pi symbol even. So we know 227, a significant number for the circle. The number of degrees in a circle, 360 equals 227. Quarterback Bobby Lane, whose birthday is December 19th, his birthday is 227 days before quarterback Tom Brady, who won this year's championship game. In the 53 NFL championship, Bobby Lane threw a game-winning touchdown pass to Jim Doran. Doran was 227 days before his birthday. Notice how the name Doran sums to 25 and 29. That would be the same as pi in the ordinal ciphers, 25 and 29. So now let's look at the numerical connection between Paul Brown, founder and coach of the Browns in 1953. He lost the title game that year. And we're going to compare him to Sean McVay, who lost Super Bowl 53, and see how these guys are related. If you measure from Paul Brown's date of birth to Sean McVay's date of birth, you get 77 years and 140 days. Well, of course, 7 plus 7 equals 14, so that's kind of interesting. But more interesting is the fact that the name Sean McVay equals 140 in the reverse alphabetic order, and his birthday falls 140 days after Coach Paul Brown's. On the date of the 1953 championship, Paul Brown was 45 years, 112 days old. We mentioned this 112 number earlier. Super Bowl equals 112. Well, during Super Bowl 53, quarterback Jared Goff was 112 days after his birthday. And as far as their birthdays being separated by 45 years, the two losing coaches, check out how Jared Goff equals 45 in both reduction methods, just like New England, the team he lost to, 45 and 45. There's one other number that Jared Goff shares with New England. Check out the reverse alphabetic order, where both New England and Jared Goff sum to 171. So Jared Goff lost Super Bowl 53. The losing quarterback of the 1953 NFL championship was Otto Graham. And look how old he was. 11,710 days old. A number with that 171 sequence in it. This quarterback, Otto Graham, he was born 72 years before Jared Goff. And in the alphabetic order, Jared Goff equals 72. These two losing quarterbacks, their birthdays are separated by a span of 313 days. Think about how the Rams lost the game 3-13. Also, 313 is a prime number. It's the 65th prime number. And think about how the Patriots are now 6-5 in Super Bowls. In satanic gematria, Los Angeles Rams equals 650. And just a little more about Otto Graham. This guy here, he lost the 53 championship game. Otto Graham equals 53 in the reverse alphabetic order. His full name was Otto Everett Graham Jr. And look how his name sums to 241 in the alphabetic order. Remember, 241 is the 53rd prime number. So in the 53 championship, the game-winning touchdown was scored by Jim Doran, or Duran, as mentioned above. There was only one touchdown scored in Super Bowl 53, and that was by Sony Michel. If you measure between these two men's birthdays, you get 67 years and 190 days. Well, why is this especially interesting? 67 is the 19th prime number, so you have a prime relationship right here in the duration between birthdays. In the reduction method, the name Sony equals 19. Super Bowl 53 was 19 years after the only time the Rams won an NFL championship. Or, I'm sorry, the only time they won a Super Bowl. Notice how LA Rams equals 19. Their head coach is McVay. McVay equals 19. They play in the city of Los Angeles. Los Angeles equals 109. This number 19, significant because of the moon's metonic cycle, which is a period of almost exactly 19 years. Los Angeles, California equals 197. This is the same as metonic cycle in the reverse order, 197. The Metonic cycle, a period of 19 years, which also sums to 197. So earlier we were talking about pi, right? 3.14. In Jewish gematria, pi equals 69. And remember, pi allows us to calculate the mathematics of circles. Circles equals 69 in the alphabetic order. Check out the name of the losing quarterback, Jared Goff. Not only does Jared equal 690, but then Goff equals 69, just like pi. This Super Bowl was played in Atlanta. Atlanta equals 69. It was Super Bowl 53. The Roman numerals LIII sums to 69 in the reverse order. So this might get a little complicated if it's not already. But I want you to consider how the first number in the alphabetic order that sums to 314 is 223. 223 is the number of synodic months in the Saros cycle. So the Metonic cycle is probably the most significant moon cycle to understand, but the Saros is the other one. And this is a period of 223 synodic months. It allows us to predict the next lunar or solar eclipse. And isn't it interesting that in both of my large number ciphers, the name Thomas Edward Patrick Brady sums to 2023 and 2203. Both of these with that 223 sequence. So this number is super significant to Tom Brady. Now, if you take 223 plus 232 plus 322, all the permutations of these three digits, it sums to 777. And when you don't use the word and, 777 is the first number to sum to 314. So much of this revolving around the numbers of pi, it's really crazy. Of course, Tom Brady was born in the year 77. If you look at the properties of 777, by the way, numeric ritual equals 777. That's what this game undoubtedly was. But check out the sum of divisors for 777. Notice how it's 1216. Think about the two quarterbacks that played in Super Bowl 53. Number 12, Tom Brady. Number 16, Jared Goff. And then go back to the 53 NFL championship game and check out the winning coach, Buddy Parker, born on the date 12/16, December 16th. That man, Buddy Parker, would go on to die on the date 3/22, March 22nd. 322 also having that pi value of 314. If you're interested on more of this, about how the language is crafted by the numbers of pi in the circle, please go back on my channel, do a search for the language in circle, and that should definitely bring you to my video. Speaking of the number 322, look at the halftime performer, Adam Levine. Adam Levine was born on the date March 18th, 1979. March 18th is 322 days before February 3rd, the date of the game. Tom Brady's first pass was intercepted. That interception was from Corey Littleton. Corey Littleton was born on November 18th, which is the 322nd day of the year. So these alignments are really something else. And it just blows my mind how rigged this has been for how long. You know, these people playing around with these numbers really know what they're doing. They understand this system much, much better than I do. That is for sure. And I am going to continue and look at this this third post I made today. We're also going to pick apart the game stats of Super Bowl 53 and talk a little bit about why the numbers that we saw in the statistics were coded in. And if you haven't figured it out by now, all these stats, the yards, you know, the time at which they snap certain plays, everything coordinated, carefully crafted by the numbers. And this is how the NFL has been forever. You know, they started in 1920, I believe, 1919, long before the games could be televised. So the NFL had many, many years to figure out how to perform these scripted rituals in front of a crowd before they had to go in front of television. Anyway, let's start with the passing stats of Super Bowl 53. First, let's talk about Tom Brady. Tom Brady sums to 46 in the reverse alphabetic order. Brady went to college at Michigan, which sums to 46 in full reduction. Now, the 46th prime number is 199. In Satanic Gematria, Thomas Edward Patrick Brady equals 1099. Tom Brady was drafted number 199 in the year 2000. Tom Brady had 262 yards passing. 262 equals 199, just like the draft pick that he came out in. But if you pay attention closely, you'll notice that the team only had 253 passing yards because of one sack. And this by no means is a coincidence either. Super Bowl 53, using the alphabetic order, equals 253. This is the same value in the same cipher as the National Football League, 253. 253 is a triangular number. It's the 22nd triangular number. Of course, 22 men on the field at all times during a football game. National Football League equals 220, like the number 22. Next, let's look at Jared Goff. And the first thing I want to point out is that Jared Thomas Goff sums to 148 in the alphabetic order. Remember, we just got the death of the character Neil Winters from The Young and the Restless. His name sums to 148. It was Jared Thomas Goff who played in Super Bowl 53, which equals 148. Also, the word interception equals 148. Brady's first pass of the game was an interception. In extended gematria, 53 equals 1229. So I found it pretty interesting that not only does Jared Goff have a numeric alignment in his name with the number 53, but the number of passing yards he had in the game was 229. 53 equals 1,229. He was sacked 4 times, meaning that the team had 198 yards of official passing. And this seems to be related to Revelation. The 229th verse of Revelation reveals the number of the beast. In Jewish gematria, beast equals 198. I mean, I guess it could be a coincidence, but something tells me it's certainly not. Next, let's look at the rushing stats. Todd Gurley only had 35 yards rushing. These 35 yards came on 10 carries, meaning he also had 3.5 yards per carry. Well, why is this interesting? Todd Gurley is the only offensive player on either team to share an August 3rd birthday with Tom Brady. Tom Brady sums to 35 in reduction. And his birth date, 8 plus 3 plus 1 plus 9 plus 7 plus 7 equals 35. Also, his long carry was 16 yards. Remember, the 16th prime number is 53, like the number of the Super Bowl. 53 is also the inverse of 35. Next, we look at Sony Michel. Sony Michel had 94 yards rushing. And how interesting is it that Sony Michel equals 123 and 147? So does the number 94, 123 and 147. The leading receiver for the Rams in the game was Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks equals 53. Remember how this guy just played for the Patriots last year, and he was also in the Super Bowl on the losing end. Super Bowl 53 in the alphabetic order equals 184. Brandon Tawan Cooks, his full name, equals 184. And on the date of the Super Bowl equals 131. It's the NFL Championship, which equals 131. This Super Bowl was played in Atlanta, Georgia, which equals 131. And on the date of this game, Brandon Cooks was 131 days after his birthday. Speaking of Atlanta, notice how Brandon Cooks ended with exactly 120 receiving yards. In the reverse alphabetic order, Atlanta equals 120. He had those 120 yards on 8 receptions, which means he had exactly 15 yards per catch. In reduction, Atlanta equals 15. The numbers of Atlanta were also coded into the stats of Julian Edelman. Notice how in the alphabetic order, Atlanta equals 69. Well, the 69th prime number is 347. The prime factorization of 141 is 3 times 47. Julian Edelman with 141 yards. Pretty interesting. He also had 14.1 yards per catch. I'd also like to point out that Julius Francis Edelman equals 83 in reduction. The word football equals 83. Tom Brady's birthday, 8/3. 83 is the 23rd prime number. This game was played on the date 2/3. The name Brady equals 23. In regards to the word football, also consider how the final score of the game was 13-3. Next, let's look at our kickers. First of all, we're sitting here talking about the number 83 in football and how significant this number was to the date. It's the 23rd prime. The date was 2/3. Stephen Gostkowski made 2 field goals. One was 41 yards and one was 42 yards. That's a total of 83 yards of field goals. As far as why his longest field goal was 42 yards, the 42nd prime number is 181, and Super Bowl 53 equals 181 in the reverse order. Consider also that his other field goal was 41 yards. Tom Brady, 41 years old, the 13th prime. They won the game with 13 points. 13 is the 6th prime. It was Brady and Belichick's 6th championship when Belichick was 66 years old. Anyway, of course, these Roman numerals, LIII, this represents 53. Greg Zuerlein of the Rams, his only field goal was 53 yards. Talked about that number to start the video. Then we can even look at the punters, who were also involved in the rigging. Ryan Allen of the Patriots had 215 yards of punts. Before the game, Bobby, who jumped in at the beginning of this video, Gematria Pioneer, he mentioned how important the number 215 was to Tom Brady. Brady was born on the 215th day of the year. His first game came against the Detroit Lions, which sums to the 215th prime. So this is a number we had our eyes on before the game. And what do you know? 215 yards of punts from their punter. Also, check out his longest punt. Again, 53. Are you kidding me? The punter of the Rams was Johnny Hecker. His 8th consecutive punt turned out to be the longest punt in NFL history. Now, what I noticed right before that punt is that Jim Nantz started talking about the commentator of the original Super Bowls, Jack Whitaker. Jack Whitaker lives in Philadelphia, and Jim Nantz made a very clear point to say Philadelphia, like very clearly. And Philadelphia sums to 65 in reduction. And immediately after that, the punter had a 65-yard punt. The Patriots are now 6-5 in Super Bowls. Remember, the 65th prime is 3-13, and the Rams lost the game 3-13. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this video. Thanks to everyone for jumping in. And if you still think the NFL is truly pure athletic competition, oh, brother, I don't know what to tell you guys anymore. It's all about the 53. One touchdown, 53 minutes into the game. One field goal from the Rams, 53 yards. It just goes on and on, guys. All right, all y'all. God bless. Peace and love. Hope you all have a great rest of your week. See ya.